All right, we're going to be in Mark chapter 13 this morning. Mark chapter 13, and we are going to begin reading in verse 24. And it reads like this. But in those days, after the tribulation, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. And then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. And then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also when you see these things taking place, you know that he is near, at the very gates. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on guard, keep awake, for you do not know when the time will come. It is like a man going on a journey, when he leaves home and puts his servants in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to stay awake. Therefore stay awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening, or at midnight, or when the cock crows, or in the morning, lest he come suddenly and find you asleep. And what I say to you, I say to all, stay awake. We have lit the first candle in our Advent wreath. And it's the prophecy candle, the candle of hope. It symbolizes our hope. And as we were talking about a little earlier, we need to have hope in something. Everybody needs to have hope in something. And there's some things that just don't bring enough hope. Let's just consider it. I think a lot of people try and put hope in money. I mean, if I can just rat hole enough money, if I can just stash enough money, if I can just, plan far enough ahead, maybe if I just diversify enough and don't put all my money in the stock market, but maybe I'll get some gold and silver and we'll shove that in a safe somewhere. And maybe if I can just get enough put into my 401k, then when I retire, I'll have this money. But it comes to mind regularly that the dollar is very fleeting. Money is it's crazy. It's an illusion. It's just paper. And it can be taken away. It means a dollar means nothing. Today it might mean, a better part of a loaf of bread. Tomorrow it might not even buy a slice. The same dollar. We don't know. We just don't know. We're reminded here just a couple of years ago when it all fell apart. I know a ministry in town that thought they were sitting pretty nice. They had $1 million in bank and invested, and it was gone in a heartbeat. It was gone. It's just gone. So money doesn't buy us hope. I mean, if that's the best that we have to hope in, how about people? How about relationships? How about friends? If we just have enough friends, and if we just have enough people that owe us a favor, and if we just, if we're just the nicest person, so we have the most friends, then certainly we'll be taken care of. If everybody just likes us, if we're just likable, and everybody likes us, maybe that will be our hope. When it all falls apart, people will just like us enough to just want to help us and take care of us. And well, I got news for you. People disappoint every day. People are human, and we disappoint. We're not. Please, if your hope is in me, get a life. Get out. Certainly my family has a hope in me, but not for the big things. I can't buy my own way into heaven. I can't get anybody in. I could get you, maybe I could pull some strings and get you into the Church of the Nazarene, but I got a clue for you. That didn't get you into heaven. So where do we draw our hope? I mean, do we draw our hope in the fact that we're Americans? And we're the bullies on the block. We're the big guys on the block. We're the most powerful nation and the most powerful army in the world. Do we draw our hope from that? Really, I hope not. I hope not, because governments are fleeting. Man, the world's getting crazy, and it's getting crazy here. I hope we don't draw our hope in that. I mean, read through the Old Testament and how fleeting strong governments. Read a history book. Open up the encyclopedia. Start reading about the ancient powerhouses in this world and how they met their demise. There's no hope there, my friends. We're not going to be the biggest forever. That changes. History changes. So where do we get our hope? Not from the church. This, as a church, as in coming into a building. I mean, I hope that you find hope here, but it isn't in the building. We've talked about it before, but I just want you to step back in time, 2,000 plus years, and put yourself in the shoes of those Israelites that were walking the planet at that time. They'd been holding on to these prophecies, these Old Testament prophecies for thousands of years, that there was this Messiah who was going to come, this Savior who was going to come. And at this time, more than ever, that saying that it's always darkest before the dawn is true. And it was true in this case as well. They had been in captivity for 600 years, and to some of the most evil names in history. I mean, with people like Antiochus Epiphanes, Alexander the Great. At the time that this whole story begins to unfold, it's the time of Nero. They're just evil men who had control and dominion over God's people. And of course, they're holding on generation after generation after generation after generation. The stories are told. The Messiah is coming. The Messiah is coming. He's going to be coming. And yet he just never came. He never came. He never came. And so I just try and plug myself back in there sometimes and just think, how might this whole story that's about to unfold have played out in my life? Because we see that when Jesus finally comes, they miss him. They miss him. My fear is that we don't learn from this. My fear is that just as each great civilization has bowed its knee and crumbled to the same stuff, there's nothing new, my friends. You go back and you read the history books. You go back and read the Old Testament history about great nations. They all fall the same way. They turn from God. They get really into themselves and serving themselves. And they overindulge and they overextend. And the next thing you know, they're a pile of rubble. And the next great thing comes. And we don't learn from that. History never learns from that. We always think, well, we're the ones. I didn't go there. We're Americans, man. You hear that all the time. We're America. We're different. No, we're not. We're made up of human beings. Just like the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans and the Babylonians. Identical. We even think the same way. Because they thought the same thing. It could never happen to us. We're Babylonians. And yet we see it happening today. We see it happening in our own world, in our own country. If we would only open our eyes and look, it's the same thing happening over and over again. And so I worried to myself when I read this story, and Jesus says things like this. But concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven. See, that's the same thing about when he came. Nobody knew when he was coming. They just knew that there was prophecies saying he was coming. And there were prophecies to be open, to be looking, and to be watching, and to be waiting for Christ to come. And yet people still missed it. And then we read this, "For you do not know when the time will come. It is like a man going on a journey when he leaves home and puts his servants in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to stay awake. Therefore, stay awake. For you do not know when the master of the house will come in the evening, or at midnight, or when the cock crows, or in the morning, lest he come suddenly and find you asleep. And when I say to you, I say to all, stay awake. Stay awake. Be watching." What does that stay awake mean? Does it just mean that we don't sleep? No. It's not all no, I can't imagine. I like to sleep. Let me put it to you this way. Little story, we all remember these kinds of stories. Remember back in school, probably junior high or high school maybe even, and you're sitting in the classroom and you're doing your work, and let's just say you're sitting in literature class. We'll just pick literature. And so you're sitting in literature class, and a call comes over the intercom, or some of you probably didn't have intercoms yet, knock at the door, principal walks in perhaps, or comes over the intercom, for those that had the intercom, and it says, "Miss Johnson," just came to my mind, Vicki. "Miss Johnson, would you report to the principal's office?" And the teacher says, "Class, I have to go down to the principal's office. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to spend these next minutes while I'm gone reading the next chapter, and when I return, there's going to be a little quiz." Because the teacher's smart, she wants to know who read the chapter while she was gone. And of course, all the kids are like, "Yes, Miss Johnson." And then she walks out the door, and there's silence for about 30 seconds, because little Johnny over in the corner just wants to make sure that she's far enough down the hall before the first spit wad comes out. Yeah, and then a wad of paper comes flying back at Johnny, and then, within about 30 seconds, it's mass chaos in the classroom. And it's mass chaos. There's people wrestling in the corner, and there's books flying, and all of a sudden, there's just dead silence. And all the kids look. And there's Miss Johnson standing in the door. Remember those stories? I remember those. That happened all the time. And there's John. And so what does Miss Johnson do is, the first thing she does is she gives a pop quiz that everybody in the classroom fails. And then everybody in the classroom gets like an hour of detention after school for the next week. Understand that. That's what it means by stay awake. That's what it means by stay awake. Because inevitably there was the nerd sitting in the corner who didn't want to get involved, who didn't want to be, "You guys are going to get in trouble. You guys are going to get in trouble. You guys are going to get in trouble." That voice, "Shut up." And they're the ones that pass the test when Miss Johnson comes back and gives the pop quiz. That's what stay awake means. That's a perfect illustration of stay awake. That's what Jesus means. There's something, there's a task that he left. He gave instructions when he left. He left the room. God said, "Jesus, I'm bringing you home. I'm bringing you home for a while because I got something for you to do, but I'm going to send you back." And before Jesus ever left, he said, "Here's the deal, guys. This is what I want you doing, and I am coming back. But by the way, I can't even tell you when I'm coming back because I don't know. Only the principal, God. Only God knows when he's going to be finished with me in the principal's office, and he's going to send me back to the classroom, Earth. Only God knows that. I can't even tell you. But here's the deal. Don't fall asleep. Don't get sidetracked. Don't get all involved with the junk going on in the classroom. Pay attention to what I've asked you to do. Pay attention to what what I've told you to do. Stay on task, because I'm coming back, and I want you to be ready when I get here. I want you to pass the test. There's going to be a test when I get back. Are you doing? We can go through the parable of the talents. We can go through 100 other things that Jesus had to say. There's going to be a litmus test when I get back. I'm going to put a strip of paper on you, and it needs to turn white. It needs to be white. Because that's who I'm coming back for. I'm coming. The rest, don't fall asleep. Jesus is saying to his guys, here, man, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on to get your mind off track. There's going to be crazy stuff. He says, in those days after the tribulation will be darkened and the moon not giving its light, the stars will be falling from heaven, the powers in the earth will be shaken. You read some other texts, it talks about, the turmoil in the world. There's going to be wars, rumors of wars. There's going to be earthquakes. We see all that stuff going on. It says there's going to be many people who come in my name. They're going to be saying they're me. Don't believe them. There's going to be all this stuff going on. And we can tack on, because we live in the Western world, there's going to be all this money and all this stuff that we want, and there's going to be all these distractions, all these good things. We're going to get so distracted and carried on. But the moment is going to happen, and Jesus is going to be standing there, and everybody's going to go. The question is are you hanging on the hope that he's coming back? Because he's coming back. I can tell you that the nerd sitting in the corner was just sitting there hoping that the teacher would come back. I guarantee it. He was hoping. He was sitting there. You guys are going to get in trouble. And he was getting teased. He was getting ridiculed. He was getting pelted with spitballs and paper airplanes. And maybe the bullies in the class were walking up behind him and smacking him in the back of the ear and flicking his ears. And he's just sitting there taking it. Why? Because he didn't want to be distracted when the door opens, because inevitably, which happened to me, here's the deal, this is the truth about me. I wasn't the instigator, and it took a while before I got sucked in, but I always got sucked in just before the teacher got there. I'm telling you, it's true. I just couldn't hold on any longer. And then I would get involved, and inevitably, it was me, the first thing the teacher saw when he walked in the door. And you're not convincing any teacher that you just started. They don't care. And that's why I think Paul talks a lot about finishing the race strong. Run through the finish line. Don't give up. Don't let up. Don't take your eyes off the prize. And if you have to use an old horse racing task and put blinders on, do it. Don't fall asleep. Don't. And what does that mean? What should we be doing? I suppose I should cover that. What are we supposed to be doing? We've talked a lot about it the last couple of weeks when we've been talking about grace. We are Christ's light in the world. That's what we are. What should we be doing? We should be doing exactly what the Master asked us to do when he left the room. Things like Matthew 25, clothing the naked, feeding the hungry, giving drink to the thirsty, visiting the orphans and the prisoners, taking care of the widows. That's, as a church, that's what we need to be doing. Those are the things that we need to be doing. What else did he ask us to do? He said, you're going to be my witnesses. We should be telling the world what he's doing in our lives. Telling the world what Christ has done for us. And I've said it before, you don't have to be an ordained minister to go out in the world and be a witness. My word, no. We've talked about it for the last 2 weeks. Relationships. Don't isolate yourselves. Don't isolate ourselves into the walls of this church. We all go out. This is an hour and a half on a Sunday morning. That's a fraction of our week. The rest of the week we spend out there. I'm all about coming in here and worshiping God and getting fueled for our week. But that's the purpose here. The purpose is to get fuel. The purpose is to get filled up. The purpose is to come together and to worship God and to identify that we're not in this alone, and there's hope in that. We don't go out alone. But the reality is, I think, that the church stopped going out a long time ago. Oh, we go out with the message of thou shalt not. We have no problem with going out into the public forum and saying, here's the deal. The public has to adhere to the beliefs of the church. And if you don't, we're going to cry foul. When in reality, what the church needs to be doing is going out and just living out the gospel. You know, Jesus never once addressed the government. There's something to be said about that. It's a little different situation than what we have here. I get that. But I think this, if the church were more concerned with forming relationships with lost people, we would have to worry less about the direction of our government. Let me repeat that for you. I'm going to repeat that for me. If the church were more worried about forming relationships with lost people than being worried with making sure lost people were somehow living up to some church, I don't know, doctrine, we would have to worry less about the direction our government is going. Because I believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, if the church lived out what the teacher instructed us to do when he left the class, the government would fix itself. That's what I believe. Now, I'm not claiming that we as Christians, we need to get out of politics. I'm not saying as Christians we need to not vote. I'm not saying as Christians we need not draw lines in the sand. But what I'm saying is, let's get more worried about whether John Q. person knows Jesus than whether John Q. person is a Republican or a Democrat. That's what I'm saying. Because that's what the teachers asked us to do. He didn't say go out and make sure that everybody was voting right, and that everybody was constitutionally sound, and that everybody blah, 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 blah. He said go out and make disciples. Reach people for Jesus. How are you going to do that? You know how you do that? You don't do that by going out and saying, all right, preacher, we're going to go out and make disciples. We're going to go beat on doors this week, and we're going to tell people how sinful they are. It doesn't work. They gave up on that decades ago. They used to do that. When I was a kid, that's what the guys in the church did on Wednesday night. Women would get together and pray. Guys were out beating on doors, telling people how sinful they are. Never saw a person coming to the church from that. Sorry, just didn't. Maybe they did. I didn't see it. Why? You tell me. Have somebody come to your door and tell you you're doing everything wrong, and see what you want to hear them that they have to say. Here's how you reach people. Come have a relationship with them. Don't preach at them. You don't have to preach at them. People don't want to be preached at. People want to see. Here's what I think people want. I think people are craving for hope in something. I think people are looking into this world and they're afraid. I think people are looking into this world and they're thinking, what is going to happen to us? I think people are uncertain. I think people are crying out for someone to stand up that's confident that they have what they need, but they're not going to shove it in their face and force it down their throat. In a word, in 2 words, live it. Live it. Go out and invest in people and just live your faith in front of them. They're going to see what you have, and they will want it. I think the gospel doesn't need to be sold, friends. The gospel sells itself. Only when it's legitimate. Only when people are truly living it, truly modeling it, it sells itself. Our country, the founding of our country screams of it. And were we founded perfect? Nope. We weren't. There were huge mistakes made. We did grave injustice to people in the founding of our country. But I believe the hearts of God's people are why this country flourished. I think that happens all across the world. You see missionaries, when I talk to missionaries and I say, well, how do you be a missionary? Because as I've been growing up and even as I've been an adult, I think here's a missionary. They go out and they stand on a street corner and they preach. That's not what they do. They go into a country and you know what they do? They live there. They get jobs. They meet people. They talk to people. They have relationships with people. And people see that they have something different. That there's this peace in their life, and there's this unspeakable joy in their life, and that there's this contentment. And that they literally wanted to leave America to go to Haiti and serve people. That's just right off the bat. When you go into the world and you go into the streets and you reach into the lives of people who think that they don't have any value, they take notice of that. They take notice of that. I think everybody has value. But you know what? Most people are never going to know that. Because they see themselves as the world sees them. And therefore they judge themselves by how much money they have, how much notoriety they have, how good their kids are. I don't know how people judge themselves. But people need to see themselves as Jesus sees them. And how are they going to do that unless we go out there and see them that way? That's what we're called to do. That's what we're called to do. That's what the church is called to do. We're not called to just sit here on this street, this strip here on County Road 3 in Merrifield, just to be a big church. God forbid we ever become big and stagnant. I don't want to be small and stagnant. You know what I want? I would love to have this place full. I would love to have this place absolutely cram-packed full every Sunday. You know why? Because we can get 180 people in here. And if we had 180 people going into the streets every week, being Jesus to their world, as your workplace, as your mission field, we might have to have a second service just for all the people that will be finding Jesus here to turn around and go back out there. And it's simply about that. It's about building the kingdom. That's all it's about. I don't care about money. I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't care about, oh, look at Ron, he's got a church of 150 people. I couldn't care less about that. Don't care. Now tell me that we reach 150 people for Jesus next year, that I care about. You absolutely, you betcha, I care about that. And you know how we're going to do that? You know how that's possible? If we just go out and make relationships. No expectations from people. Don't want anything from them except for their friendship. That's what Jesus says by stay awake, guys. That's what he means, that he warned us, don't fall asleep. That's what he means by stay awake. The warnings in the New Testament for those who don't stay awake aren't pretty. It's not a suggestion. It's a command. Stay awake. So this morning, as we've lit our candle of hope, we can go through our Bible and we can reflect on all the promises, but the reality is this. The teacher will be back soon, I believe very soon. I want to be the nerd sitting in the corner saying, you guys are gonna get in trouble, you guys are gonna get in trouble. I want to be the nerd sitting in the corner that passes the pop quiz. And there really is only one question on the pop quiz, by the way. Teacher's going to ask, this is kind of very metaphorical, is your name written in the Lamb's Book of Life? Yes or no? Stay awake. Stay awake. I can get